Welcome to Town Hall, and thank you for attending a Gilbert public meeting. Here are a few things to know. The meeting will be held in the council chambers. Should additional seating be needed, you may watch from our lobby. If you would like to speak at today's meeting, you'll find both agendas and speaker cards at the front counter in the lobby. Our staff is here to assist you fill out the cards and find the corresponding agenda items. All speaker cards from the public must be submitted prior to the start of the meeting. The Town Council is committed to providing an environment where everyone's voice is heard during public meetings. In an effort to preserve order and decorum, here are a few rules and guidelines we ask everyone to follow during the meeting. You may bring signs and similar items into the council chambers, but these items may not be held above shoulder height or otherwise obstruct the view or block the path of members of the audience. Disruptions impact the flow of discussion, potentially intimidate others, and detract from the purposes of the meeting. Therefore, disruptive behavior, including, but not limited to, cheering, shouting, booing, or the use of profanity is prohibited. Applause is only permissible during the presentations and proclamations portion of the agenda. Threats directed toward any individual or group are prohibited. Speakers may not campaign or advocate for or against candidates for office or ballot issues or otherwise attempt to influence the outcomes of elections. A full list of meeting rules is displayed at the entrance of the council chambers. During the public hearing portion of the agenda and during communications from citizens, when your name is called, please come forward to the podium. Then state your name, your town of residence, and begin speaking. Remarks shall be limited to 3 minutes. Citizens who are at the meeting and wish to donate their time to a single speaker must fill out an individual card and then combine their speaker cards. In such an event, one person from the group shall be designated to present their remarks, which shall be limited to 6 minutes. If one speaker is speaking on behalf of others who are present, the mayor or vice mayor shall read into the record the names of those whose time is combined. No person other than the individual speaking shall enter into the discussion. Officials on the dais may not respond to any questions or comments during communications from citizens. However, the council may ask questions during public hearing items. All comments and questions shall be directed through the mayor or presiding officer. Thank you again for attending a Gilbert Town meeting and for your participation in local government.
Good evening, everyone. I'll go ahead and call to order our Gilbert Town Council meeting for October 22nd, 2024. The first thing on our agenda is our invocation, inviting Pastor Brad Myers of Central Christian Church to the podium, please. I think there's a note on the button that you need to push to turn the microphone on, Pastor. There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
So let us pray. Father God, we ask for guidance, wisdom, and support for the leaders of this community. We also ask for the leaders to be moved to lead justly, govern well, and make choices that transcend fear and despair. Lord, may we know the presence of the Holy Spirit here with us today. May we be open to your leadership, sensitive to your speaking, and alert to your calling. Dear God, defend our cause through this governing body tonight. We pray for wisdom, strength, and the courage to do what is right and good for all citizens. May we put the interests of others above our own, and may we act with love for the common good. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you for joining us this evening. Appreciate the invocation. Next, we will have a Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Kaprowski.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, if our town clerk could please conduct the roll call.
Mayor Bridget Peterson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Scott Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Chuck Bongiovanni.
Here.
Councilmember Bobby Buckley.
Here.
Councilmember Young Kaprowski.
here.
Councilmember Kathy Tilkey.
Here.
And Councilmember Jim Torgerson. A quorum is present.
Thank you, Chiavelli. Appreciate that. First on our presentations and proclamations agenda this evening is a proclamation declaring November 2024 as Alzheimer's and Caregiver Month. Councilmembers Bongiovanni and Kaprowski will present to Steve Adams. Steve, if you're here, please come down and join our council members. Thank you. Yeah, everybody in the purple shirts, come on down. Oh, even if you don't have a purple shirt on.
Whereas Alzheimer's and related dementia have a significant impact on the health and well-being of our residents, with more than 151,000 Arizonans living with Alzheimer's. And whereas more than 292,000 Arizonans provide over 483 million hours in unpaid care to their loved ones living with Alzheimer's and related dementia. And whereas women are at the epicenter of the Alzheimer's crisis, with almost 2/3 of American seniors living with Alzheimer's disease being women, as well as 70% of all unpaid Alzheimer's and dementia caregivers are women. And whereas in Arizona, Alzheimer's is the 4th leading chronic disease cause of death, and so Arizonans are actively engaged in disease education, continuum of care advocacy, and improved training in care of Alzheimer's and dementia-related patients. And whereas the town of Gilbert is committed to actions that address this public health crisis and have applied for a Dementia-Friendly America municipality designation, which will connect the town with community stakeholders and provide dementia-friendly trainings for frontline team members, local businesses, and community members, and offer education, support, and programs for those affected by Alzheimer's and dementia-related diseases and their caregivers. And now, therefore, I, Young Kaprowski, and Councilmember Chuck Bongiovanni, on behalf of Mayor Bridget Peterson of the town of Gilbert, Arizona, do hereby proclaim November 2024 as Alzheimer's and Caregiver Month, and encourage all of our residents to learn more about Alzheimer's and related dementia-related illnesses.
Thank you.
Would like to say,
I do have a couple, can I say a couple things? Okay, hold this for just 1 second. Can you hold this for a second?
Yep.
It won't be long.
Don't give me the mic.
I'll give you the mic. All right. Well, first of all, I would like to thank the town of Gilbert for this recognition. It means a lot to me. Last year, there's a difference between last year and this year. My wife was here last year, and she's not this year. I want to share a letter that was written on November 5th, 1994. I think it kind of brings everything together. My fellow Americans, I have recently been told that I am one of the millions of Americans who will be affected with Alzheimer's disease. Upon learning this news, Nancy and I had to decide whether, as private citizens, we would keep this as a private matter, or whether we would make this news known in a public way. In the past, Nancy suffered from breast cancer, and I had my cancer surgeries. We found through our open disclosures, we were able to raise public awareness. We were happy that as a result, many more people underwent testing. They were treated in early stages and able to return to normal, healthy lives. So now, we feel it is important to share it with you. In opening our hearts, we hope that this might promote greater awareness of this condition. Perhaps it will encourage a clearer understanding of the individuals and families who are affected by it. At the moment, I feel just fine. I intend to live the remainder of my years, of the years God gives me on this earth, doing the things I have always done. I will enjoy to share life's, I will continue to share life's journey with my beloved Nancy and my family. I plan to enjoy the great outdoors and stay in touch with my friends and supporters. Unfortunately, as Alzheimer's disease progresses, the family often bears a heavy burden. I only wish there was some way I could spare Nancy from this painful experience. When the time comes, I'm confident that with your help, she will face it with faith and courage. In closing, let me thank you, the American people, for giving me the great honor of allowing me to serve as your president. When the Lord calls me home, whenever that may be, I will leave with the greatest love for this country of ours and eternal optimism for its future. I now begin the journey that will lead me into the sunset of my life. I know that for America, there will always be a bright dawn ahead. Thank you, my friends. May God always bless you. Sincerely, Ronald Reagan. I want to thank you all, and please continue to support this cause. Thank you.
Would one of those ladies like to explain the flowers? Because I just saw a movie, it was a Hallmark movie. With I saw it, yep, I watch every Hallmark movie, I admit it. So can you please explain the flowers?
I actually just sat down. I lost my wife, it'll be 4 years in March, after an 8-year battle. She was a high school math teacher at Chandler Unified School District. And I just said, it's a punch in the gut every year that I have to change for going from a yellow, which is a caregiver, to purple, which means I've lost someone. So each flower represents a different signification. The yellow is a caregiver. The blue is someone that has Alzheimer's. The orange is an ally and an advocate. And we're hoping for the white, which means the first survivor of this disease. So we're making progress. So, and the walk is November 2nd. So we hope to.
Full of promise flowers.
Yes, we will. We
Yeah.
will. So, thank you.
So, yeah, so the yellow is the one that Ashley Williams actually held on stage. And she was her mom's primary caregiver when her mom had temporal dementia with Alzheimer's. So she said that movie was her love letter to the Alzheimer's Association and their support of her. Because this yellow flower is hard.
Thank you. Thank you all again.
Let's take a picture. Thank you for being here tonight.
Can we get a photo?
Most funny for you to have them. Get over here.
Okay, we're gonna scoot over.
Steve, you gotta come over here, sir. That way you have it under the deck.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, guys. Thank you. See you soon. See you soon. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have a proclamation for Veterans Week 2024. If I could invite members of our Veterans Advisory Board to join me. And Monica D'Artenzio, the staff liaison. I warned her ahead of time. Hi, how are you, Charles? Hi, Pamela. And Monica. Monica is the staff liaison to the Veterans Advisory Board. And Councilmember Tilke and I serve as council liaisons to the Veterans Advisory Board. Veterans Week 2024. Whereas annually we honor and celebrate America's military veterans and commemorate the end of World War I hostilities that went into effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month on Veterans Day, November 11th. And whereas annually Veterans Day honors America's veterans for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and their sacrifice for the common good. And whereas, just as our forefathers imagined, America has a ready and capable new generation of military members fighting with honor for justice while safeguarding freedom around the globe. And whereas 53 veterans banners purchased by Gilbert residents are hung in Gilbert's Heritage District for Memorial Day, Independence Day, and Veterans Day, honoring veterans. And now I, therefore, Bridget Peterson, Mayor of the town of Gilbert, Arizona, do hereby proclaim November 8th through 15th, 2024 as Veterans Week 2024. And I encourage Gilbert residents to honor the heroism, courage, and sacrifice of our veterans by attending Gilbert's 20th annual Veterans Ceremony held on Town Hall front lawn at 50 East Civic Center Drive on Friday, November 8th, 2024, beginning at 11 a.m., which will recognize and remember those who have served and those whose ultimate sacrifice ensured our freedoms remain in place. These are members of our Veterans Advisory Board. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and let you know what their position is on the board. Charles?
Thank you.
And what service what rank you served? Yeah, sorry. Yes, you know what I mean.
So my name is Chief Warrant Officer 2 retired Charles Dine, and I was in the United States Marines. I currently serve as the chair of the Veterans Advisory Board, and I do have one small ask. If you know a veteran, could you please have them visit the town site and visit the Veteran Resources page? There is a Get Involved button on there. We can't really be the voice for our veterans in the town unless we have veteran participation. I think that's our greatest shortfall right now. So if we could ask your help for that, we would be much appreciative.
Hi, I'm Pamela Rhinesmith. I'm also a Marine veteran, and I am the pillar lead for the USS Arizona.
Hi, Les Presmick. I'm past chairman of the Veterans Advisory Board. I am not a veteran other than of that dais and a few other things and a lot of community service. And I saw the same Hallmark movie that you were talking about. And I left a Hallmark Christmas movie to come here. Anyway, thank you, Mayor, for the proclamation. Thank you, Council, for all the support that you've given us and what we do for the veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Great message. That is one of the places that we fall short, is being able to sign up as many veterans as that we know live in Gilbert, and we'd love to see them get involved or just come out for a coffee or something. If any veterans in the audience, will you please stand and be recognized? Thank you for your service. Thank you for attending this evening. And now I want to make one more comment. I would like to have Councilmember Tilke come down for a group photo with us, but I also want to make a comment about Monica D'Argenzio. One of our Veterans Advisory Board members, Dave Rosenfeld, couldn't be here, and he's our former chair. Just stepped down as chair. Charles stepped in as the new chair. And Dave sent us an email and asked that Monica be recognized publicly. And I'm taking the opportunity to do that right now, even though she's going to kill me. She's going to kill me. She's the council aide for us, and like I said, she is the liaison to the Veterans Advisory Board. But Dave really wanted to make it known that Monica has stood by this board from day one. It's about 4 years old since its inception as a board, and she has been there for everything through thick and thin for them. She even purchased her own banner of her grandfather to be hung last year with the banners in downtown Gilbert, and so I want to give her a special round of applause too. Had to take that advantage, I know. Now we're going to take a photo, and if you're looking for those veteran banners this year, they'll be put up at the end of October leading into Veterans Day and making sure that it covers November 8th when we have the event going on here at Town Hall. Next, we'll have a presentation on the FY 2024 Gilbert Benchmark Report by Janice Hart, Management Budget Analyst 2.
Good evening, everyone. So this will be the 2024 Gilbert Benchmark Report. So the benchmark report encompasses 75 different benchmarks across 8 major functional areas, 24 of our departments and divisions. We benchmark against 41 communities and across 13 different states. And so as we start here, for context, when we're looking at the information, anything that is going to be below our average will be reflected in the blue. Anything that is above the average will be reflected in the orange, and then the average you'll see there in the yellow. So starting out with the FY 2024 full-time employees per 1,000 residents, we can see here again that Gilbert comes in below the average, about 6.14 total FTEs per 1,000 residents, but still an increase compared to our 2022 report. As we look at maintaining a high general obligation bond rating, we can see here that compared to 2022, Gilbert continues to maintain a AAA bond rating for 2024, which again helps to allow the town to show that we're managing the finances well and put us in a good position in case we do need to borrow and receive lower interest rates as we make those obligations. As we look at the hotel occupancy average annual rate, this is an area where we saw significant improvement compared to the 22 report. Gilbert comes in strongly at 75.3% as reflected in the data here compared to the previous year report where we were at 59%. And this is significant because this shows significant bounce back post-COVID as well. As we look at the vacancy rate of all of our commercial property within the community, we can see here we've made significant strides in 2024 report for an improvement in this area, coming in at 4.4% vacancy, which is again below that average of 6.9%, but also showing again significant decrease as far as the vacancy compared to our previous report in 2022. When we're looking at the percent of customers who receive their statements electronically, these are the utility statements, we can see overall there was an increase across all communities in this area, so more folks are utilizing electronic statements. Gilbert again comes in above average, showing at 43% here in the data, so again, significant improvement in getting customers to utilize the electronic statements. As we look at the number of sworn officers per 1,000 for the 24 report here, again, we're seeing we've come in at 1.17, so again, an increase compared to our previous report in 22 with the officers per 1,000 residents. And then as we're looking at the average fire response times for 90% of calls, coming in again below the average here, 6 minutes, 39 seconds for the town of Gilbert. So again, overall doing very well in this area. And then as we look at our surface versus groundwater usage, again, showing significant improvement compared to our previous report in 2022. Still some opportunities for growth and improvement overall in this sector, but we are making strides. And then as we look at the average annual trash per household, this is an area where Gilbert continues to lead the pack. We do produce a significant amount of trash, but we are bringing that number down slowly and hope to continue on that trend. Any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none. Great presentation, Janice.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate it.
I appreciate
2 months
you.
in a row that
I
you've gotten to present to
right?
us.
And I love the Hallmark movies too. I just got to put it out there.
I record them all. I'm a sucker for the Hallmark movies. I can't. My husband says the stories are all the same, but whatever.
They're still the best. You can rewatch them a million times.
Thank you. Appreciate you and all you do and your team. Now we will move into the public hearing portion of our agenda. Items will be heard at one public hearing, at which time anyone wishing to comment on a public hearing item may do so. I will open the public hearing. We have 5 items on our public hearing agenda, 2 liquor licenses, 2 property acquisitions, and our fees. Does anyone want a separate presentation on the 2 liquor licenses or the property acquisitions? Seeing none, then I will close the public hearing on items 5, 6, 7, and 8, and I would entertain a motion on those 4 items.
I make a motion to approve number 5, 6, 7, and 8.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Councilmember Buckley, seconded by Councilmember Bongiovanni. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Items 5, 6, 7, and 8 have passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 9, which is fees. Consider adoption of ordinance number 2918 to amend the town tax code to increase the general sales tax rate from 1.5% to 2.0%, the use tax rate from 0% to 2.0%, and the bed tax rate from 2.8% to 5%. And B, adoption of resolution number 4515 declaring the 2025 use tax amendments to the tax code of the town of Gilbert as a public document. If I could open the public hearing on that item and ask, I'm assuming Kelly Fost to come down for a presentation. And Patrick Banger, am I seeing a team effort here?
Yeah, we've got several members that will be presenting tonight,
Okay.
Mayor.
Thank you, Patrick. I always go to Kelly for the first because, she's the budget girl. Oh, good. Oh, down at the podium even, Patrick. Wow. It's big time.
Indeed. All right, if we want to go ahead and bring those up. Are you controlling it from there? Okay, great. So Mayor, members of the council, we have a short presentation for you that you have seen before at past retreats, but we wanted to cover that again to give some context on the projects that will be funded through the rate increases that you have up for consideration tonight. We're going to run through why it's important, the identified projects themselves, the funding options and sources, how we stack up regionally before and after, the next steps in this process, and then we're happy to answer any questions you may have. Go to the next slide. Or is this working? Okay, great. So as we're all very much aware, we will be transitioning into build out within the next 5 to 7 years, depending on some development decisions in our community and the local economy, but we are nearing the end of what has been a 100-year history up to this point of transitioning from a small agrarian town into a major suburban American city. And at that point, we will switch our focus from these final few investments to maintain our quality of life to long-term maintenance of our infrastructure and management of those assets. The 100-year journey, as I'd mentioned, has seen us transition from a town of roughly 500 people, the first 50 years of our existence, to a community that now is closing in on 290,000 residents, and we will projected to go as high as 330,000 residents, depending on some final decisions on land use. That makes us the 76th largest city in America right now, and there are over 19,000 cities in this country. And at 72 square miles, we are very large geographically. We are bigger than a lot of major American cities such as Boston, D.C., Miami, Minneapolis, St. Louis, San Francisco, Seattle. We don't have those dense urban business districts that those communities have, but we do serve a greater size by way of land mass, which means more miles of roads, water lines, sewer lines, and we have a very large infrastructure base to maintain and care for. And we built a quality of life that our residents greatly enjoy, and it's become one of the driving factors to our growth for residents and businesses. We regularly receive accolades in various aspects of this quality of life, and we very much have a keen focus on maintaining those levels. But we still have our challenges and opportunities for improvement, as we all know. These quality of life investments that we will run through for you tonight will help the community meet our needs and help set us up for long-term sustainability of this quality of life. And up to this point, we've employed a lot of different measures to stretch our dollars and do everything we can to be good stewards of the tax dollars, such as obtaining the Chandler Heights, a Parks and Recreational easement on the Chandler Heights detention basin from Maricopa County. That allowed us to then sell excess parkland and use those funds to develop the first phases of Gilbert Regional as well as Desert Sky without issuing any additional debt to do so. We've also done things like build our new and expand our dispatch center as well as our emergency operations center within existing space in our buildings and cash fund those projects. But we are at a point now with projects and investments that have to be made that we've exhausted all of their options, and now we need to look at funding opportunities to move these things forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Angstead. He'll walk you through the items in the police department, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This first slide that we're going to jump into, if we can get to the next one here, with regard to the police department, there we go, is our advocacy center. I know you've heard some presentations on it, but we are in the final design phase right now. For those in our audience or online that aren't familiar with what an advocacy center is, imagine being a victim of an intimate violent crime. Likely you were initially contacted by somebody that looks like me in a uniform, but then what? In the mind of that victim, how and where will I be interviewed? How and where will forensic evidence be collected from my body? How and where will I get medical treatment? How and where will I meet with a counselor to pick up the pieces of my life? Currently, this process requires the police to take victims to various locations around the valley to accomplish all of those tasks. And the effort here with this advocacy center is to consolidate all of those different elements into one location. Simply put, this advocacy center allows Gilbert government to look out for Gilbert citizens. Next is a slide that speaks to a crime lab, or the future idea of a crime lab. Currently, the Gilbert Police Department doesn't have a crime lab. We contract services through the city of Mesa, and they provide great quality service now. Our concern is growth in the future. The importance of a crime lab is demonstrated on this slide. Simply put, there's a much higher solvability rate for cases when evidence is examined at a laboratory. As this slide demonstrates, offenders are 21 times more likely to be charged in homicide cases that involve forensic evidence that's processed at a lab. There's also a much higher rate of conviction for sexual assaults, along with a higher rate of robbery cases being resolved. The particular relevance of this slide is it's talking about 3 different crime types that are often serial crimes, meaning that offenders go out and reoffend. In these categories, the quicker that we can identify a suspect, ultimately the fewer crimes are committed. The benefit of us someday down the road controlling our own crime lab will be the speed at which we can get results back and hold offenders accountable. Lastly here, this slide speaks to the Central and Santan police stations. I'll start with the Central Station across the street. When we opened the building in 2003, I will tell you I thought I died and went to heaven. It was a godsend across the street, and I was and still am very thankful to our council for approving that facility. Back then, we served roughly 150,000 citizens, and we strived to staff 130 officers. No expansion has ever been conducted for that overall footprint across the street. We've moved some things around. As you know, we've remodeled our EOC, we've remodeled our dispatch, but the actual space has not changed. To relieve some of that growth pressure, the Santan substation at Queen Creek and Greenfield opened in 2007. At that time, our population was around 207,000 citizens. And as we discussed this morning at a grand opening of the first 2-story Starbucks in the country, we're now staring down the barrel of around 290,000 citizens. And as nostalgic as I am about both of our facilities, existing facilities, if I'm being honest with myself, we're just playing out of space. We've converted work areas into locker rooms and closets into offices, and we're busting at the seams. I turn it over to Chief Duggan.
Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to review quickly the 3 main areas of projects for the fire department. The first we have here is a public safety large apparatus maintenance facility. Ensuring a reliable fleet of apparatus is a vital component to maintaining our service levels by minimizing our response times. The existing facility we're utilizing now, South Area Service Center, was built over 20 years ago and has insufficient needs for today, let alone our build-out to the build-out in 2032. As you can see in the picture, our mechanics across the whole fleet are forced to work outside most of the year. We don't have enough base space for our mechanics to work in climate-controlled environments. Thinking of the record-breaking heat we had this summer, our mechanics had to endure extreme heat for over 3 months of the year in this environment. We have actually run calls to our mechanics for heat-related injuries in years past as a result of some of the working conditions having to be outside instead of in a climate-controlled environment. By adding an additional public safety large apparatus maintenance facility that will allow primarily the fire fleet and some of the other large apparatus to move to a separate building, which would then allow the remainder of the environmental fleet to occupy those spaces, which we believe will then allow our mechanics to work in climate-controlled spaces a majority of the time instead of having to endure the extreme heats they do now. This next slide talks a little bit about how we maintain response times. Maintaining low response times is the #1 request of our residents and businesses every time we poll them. No matter what the survey is, engagement surveys in the community or general performance reviews, they always ask for low response times. Maintaining or improving those response times is a pillar of our accreditation, our strategic plan over the next 5 years. We accomplish this by placing the right unit in the right place, and as I said before, with a reliable apparatus. We use data to help drive and determine where our apparatus need to be. This is just one of the graphics we utilize that represents response times. And the diamonds you see there in the middle, which is green, it's a 4-minute response time. The second diamond, yellow, 6 minutes, and red, 8-minute response time. So we use this to tell how quickly can our units get to a majority parts of the town, and then what types of calls are we responding to. We use this data again to determine where the calls are occurring and how to best to deploy our assets to reduce response times, maximize our effectiveness. One of the main areas this graphic shows is our hazmat unit, which is currently located at Station 5, down off of Germain and Higley. By the data, should be located at Station 4, Lindsay and Ray, right around the corner. But unfortunately, that was our oldest station, built in 1999. It has insufficient dorm space and bay space to accommodate the units, the people, and the equipment we need to support a hazmat unit and also transportation unit, which should also be at this location. So this shows an example of one of the graphs we utilize to determine where our assets should be placed. As we look to the other fire station projects to the right, it's got the fire station rebuild located on there because we do have to rebuild that station because it's insufficient. The remainder of the stations, 2, 8, 6, and 5, are prioritized based on anticipated call volume in the future. We do our predictive analytics to determine when we're going to need to bring additional resources to these stations, with the goal, again, of maintaining low response times as call volume increases. Last, fire administration will take a page out of PD's ability to cram people into storage spaces. This shows a picture right now of our current fire marshal, Tim Simonton's work location, as a repurposed storage room in one of the corners of the remaining spaces in the public safety building. The picture to the right shows an awkward picture, kind of a doorstop-shaped remainder of what's left of the original fire admin. Our previous space was insufficient to support the build-out needs of the organization. And because of the EOC project, which was a critical project for the long-term sustainability and safety of this town, was needed to expand, took up about half of the existing square footage of a space that was already insufficient. But again, as we found out in the last few years, the criticality of having a well-functioning EOC superseded the short-term needs of fire admin. We temporarily and currently relocated to the public safety training facility. The issues we're having now is that we're limiting the functionality of that building. We are utilizing spaces that need to be filled with fire and PD training staff as we're preparing, particularly on the fire side, for our retirement cliff that's coming. We need those spaces filled with offices and training staff that are going to be able to train the next batch of firefighters, paramedics, engineers, captains, battalion chiefs. Right now, we're limiting the ability to do that because we're occupying those spaces, and PD has similar needs along the way that we're hampering the function of that to be able to fully train our crews for the build-out needs of our future. With that, we're going to switch over to Robert Carmona from Parks and Rec.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. So the theme of the next few slides for you is going to be really in regards to Parks and Recreation. The overall concept is the high-quality park system continues to thrive, but we are at max capacity with what we can handle, not only for the residents when it comes to programming, but also park usage. Just a few fun data facts. In 2022 alone, when we ran our data, we were at 5.2 million people utilizing our Parks and Recreation system. Based on the increases we have seen with continued park programming and park visits, that number's well above 5.6 million just about a year or two later. But as we go through it, 2024 was a big year. In 2023, we really took our time to engage with the public and the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Happy to say through that effort, it was the #1 nationally recognized community engagement master plan really across the country. And what that equates to is the previous record engagement number was about 30,000. We had an engagement number of about 62,000 overall, and that really spanned from a series of events throughout the entire community, throughout all of Gilbert, all ages, all age ranges, to really understand what the public needed from us moving into the future. But also, part of that Parks and Recreation Master Plan showed us some interesting data as it went through. In just a few short years, Parks and Recreation has seen an increase of about 63% in our aquatics attendance, 45% in our special event attendance, 55% increase in the recreation programs. So that right there alone leads to some of those larger capacities where if people want to register for particular programs or get a rental at a park, There's even parties that happen to make sure that they register at midnight the night that those classes come out, because if not, that will be full the very next day. And a couple other pieces of information that kind of help show that is even within the residents through the master plan process, about 28% cited not using our programs and parks simply because they were too full to utilize. And when we looked at that data even more, the national average for that is only about 3%. So Gilbert is well above the national norm of people not being able to utilize the services just for those being too full. And on top of that, when you look at the customer satisfaction of the people who are utilizing the facilities, the programs, the events, about 93%. And when we think about those, 5 million plus visitors at a 93% customer satisfaction rate of either good or excellent, shows that high quality programming that our team prides itself in. But also we know that in that same data that there's a lot of people we're not able to serve or get to because those are simply too full to participate in. And with that, we love to speak about the good numbers, but there's also a lot of opportunities for improvement. And I think the data also showed some areas in which we weren't doing as well, simply because that system was at max capacity. So if you see where we rank up nationally, not to mention the amount of programs, the satisfaction, but overall, we're last among the top 100, park systems in terms of population with the amount of amenities that are available to our citizens. We know we have a high population of younger families. In the nation, we're second lowest per capita for actually having enough playgrounds to service all of those families. And also looking at just between the valley per 1,000 residents, Janice had the presentation earlier, we're third worst in terms of the valley for developed park acreage per 1,000 residents that are available for Gilbert. Now, when we take a look at what that engagement process looked like, that community engagement with everybody in Gilbert, counseled with the council workshops that we had with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, taking a look at all the feedback from the master plan engagement, the community impact, and sort of the geographical accessibility of where all of our current amenities are. It spans from more than just park development. It's everything from multi-use paths, lighted trails, and that park development system. And when you see it, the projected projects or the prioritized list really spans all across Gilbert. It's not just serving, one specific region or one specific population. And to kind of show that, we're highlighting two of the projects, even though there were a couple more. But we'll start with Gilbert Regional Park. Obviously, no one's probably new to Gilbert Regional Park. 50 acres were developed in 2019 and 2020. It is in the top 5 most visited parks in all of Arizona, just that beginning 50 acres, but there's still about 185 acres remaining left for development. And when we take a look at it, it really spans from all of the feedback we received from the community, and you're gonna see a grouping of amenities that are really for everybody, all ages, all abilities in Gilbert, from those multi-use sports fields to skate parks, to bike parks, to dog parks, to those community areas, and the Desert Arroyo natural trails and landscape areas, really speaking to all of Gilbert, which was a lot of the interest that the public had during that engagement process. Another good example, Desert Sky Park and that park development, about 30 acres were developed in 2019. Those fields are consistently full, and when we know from our field needs assessment that we are very short on fields, and the fields that we do have, they're not available for rent very often. They're usually full, but we're also running them to depletion, so they're no longer going to be able to be maintainable in the future if we don't have additional multi-use fields, not only for our residents to use today, but also to be able to move those fields around for maintenance periods. But it's more than just multi-use fields, accessible playgrounds, trailheads to the trail connection system, amongst a lot of other items. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you're aware, there's a lot of infrastructure that's needed, and our current funding sources are not able to support the level of infrastructure that is needed here. And so as we talked about in earlier conversations, the revenue streams that we have that might be able to support this level of infrastructure would be property tax or sales tax. Gilbert does not have a primary property tax. Instead, we have a secondary property tax, which only pays for bonds for things that voters approve on a ballot. If we went a property tax way, only our residents and businesses would help pay for this infrastructure, as opposed to sales tax, where residents businesses and visitors would all help pay for the infrastructure that was being used. Also, a secondary property tax, the infrastructure has to be bonded for, and we have to pay it back with interest. On secondary property tax, the town is able to cash fund or bond fund, and the hope for this infrastructure would be to cash fund as much as possible and then bond only what's needed for cash flow purposes, because the infrastructure is needed kind of upfront in the time period. And so council gave the direction to go ahead and look at the sales tax. Tonight, we're looking at a group of sales tax, use tax, and bed tax. Sales tax being what you typically think of and pay when you purchase items. Use tax is paid by residents or businesses when they purchase items online from vendors that do less than $100,000 of sales in Arizona. If they do more than $100,000 of sales, it becomes by definition sales tax, and they pay the sales tax for that. And then bed tax is paid by people who are visiting in hotels, motels, or short-term rentals for a period of less than 30 consecutive days. The sales tax rate that's being requested is, we're currently at 1.5%. We've been there since 2000. It was at 1% from 1973 to the year 2000. And what's anticipated is to move to 2%. That puts us in the middle of our regional peers of the larger cities here in Maricopa County. If we look at where Gilbert would put us in the whole state, this is all of the 91 cities and towns. Gilbert's at the 1.5%. Chandler is the only other city at 1.5%, and they also have a primary property tax, which helps pay for their infrastructure. As we mentioned, Gilbert does not. Most of our infrastructure, most of our programs are paid with sales tax. And you can see most of the cities across the state are in 2% and 3% range for their sales tax rate, their retail rate. There are a few that are at 4% and 5% for context. The use tax, currently Gilbert has a 0% rate. All of our other cities, peer cities, are charging a use tax. The proposal is to go to 2%. This is in the middle of the range and would match the sales tax rate as well. The bed tax rate is currently being charged at 2.8%, and the proposal would be at 5%. Most of the other cities and towns are charging the 5% rate, so it would be comparable with that. We have been talking about the infrastructure for a long number of years and looking at what the town needs. We had a council workshop in December really honing in and discussing that. Had a retreat in March talking about what the finances could look like. In August, there was a notice of intent to the public to be able to talk about possibly raising these rates tonight. So tonight is the public hearing for these rates. If approved, they will go into effect on January 1st, 2025. The impact for most citizens on the sales tax is about 50 cents when they spend $100 at the store or on their receipt. And in that, we would get the infrastructure that was described tonight with the public safety, police, fire, and parks and recreation needed for our community. There is more information about all of these projects on our website. There's a QR code here or a shorter link. It is on our website. You can go through and read about all of those different projects as well. And with that, Patrick.
Thank you, Kelly. Mayor and members of the council, we're now happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Chief Duggan. Thanks, Assistant Chief Angstead. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate the presentations this evening. Any questions? Oh, Councilmember Torgerson.
I thought we had decided that the crime lab was something that was going to go further down the line and not part of what we're talking about tonight. And it was specifically presented tonight. And my understanding is we took that off the here and now.
Mayor Peterson, Councilmember Torgerson, we are in active discussions with Chandler as we speak about potentially partnering on a joint crime lab between our two cities. So we are continuing to evaluate the possibilities of that. The direction that council gave us at the retreat was to explore that opportunity and then come back to us with the final results of what that could look like.
That sounds about right. Mm-hmm. And a decision as to whether or not to move forward, if it was going to be Gilbert only, would be made at that point in time.
The decision was not Gilbert only, to look at other options, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Thank you, Mayor. Kelly, I just want to get my numbers right here. 5.3 million people come to Gilbert every year, correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Bongiovanni, that is a number I would have to look at economic development or somebody else for, not my area of expertise. I'm sorry.
Mayor, Councilmember Bongiovanni, I believe that's just for our parks and recreational amenities and programs. There are other visitors that come for shopping and other activities and venues.
Okay, and they would come to Gilbert, spend money, and we would collect a sales tax from them also, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So in essence, they're helping to pay for our infrastructure needs.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at this time, or I can go ahead and start the public comment? Okay, we'll go to public comment. I received a sheet from the clerk's office that we had 7 comments online. 1 was in support of this item and 6 were opposed. We'll have that in the record. I also have 2 slips from residents not wishing to speak but are against this, Aaron Accurso and Mark Thompson, for the record. And then for public hearing, I will invite up James Ashley. James, I believe you're with the Home Builders Association. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I am James Ashley with the Home Builders Association of Central Arizona. We represent the single-family residential construction industry and all the related trades. Our members employ tens of thousands of workers throughout the state, and our members invest hundreds of millions of dollars annually here in Gilbert. Thank you very much for this opportunity to comment on the town's proposed tax increase. When we became aware of the proposal, the HBACA submitted a letter to the town on September 30th expressing our opposition to the sales tax increase specifically related to the construction tax. This proposal is also on the heels of a significant increase in the development impact fees, an increase of 125% in North Gilbert and 95% in South Gilbert. However, aside from the previously approved development impact fees, the September 30th letter, it raised legality of increasing the construction tax following the passage of Proposition 126 in 2018, which generally prohibits a tax increase on any service provided in the state. Within the town's definitions of construction contractor, references to construct, alter, or improve are all forms of work labor done for another, therefore not a tax on the sale of goods or tangible personal property. And this is out of Gilbert Municipal Code, Section 58-100. We noted our position that construction and contracting is a service, and therefore any increased tax on construction or contracting would be unconstitutional. Therefore, this evening, we reiterate these comments in opposition to this increase. And I'd like to thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, James. Any comments for James? Questions? Councilmember Torgerson?
Well, it's actually going to be more for John. I wanted to see what your position on him saying that it's unconstitutional, against code.
Well, the fact that we're here indicates that we disagree with that position, and if we want to, discuss it in executive session, I'm happy to step out with you should you decide.
And that's what I was going to recommend. If there are legal questions, we could move to an executive session for a few minutes and handle that, but let's get through the public hearing process first. That's okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, James. Nice
Thank you.
to see you. Michael Benson, next. After Michael will be Brock Wilson. I forgot to do the on deck.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Speaking in opposition to item 9, specifically the tax increase for sales tax and the use tax. I think right now in the current economic climate that this should be further evaluated. I think it's going to have a negative impact on all the residents here. I think there should be greater transparency and accountability in terms of the spending. And I'm asking that the town council delay a vote on those 2 items and take a further look into this and perhaps build a community group to discuss it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you for your email, too. Next is Brock Wilson and then Victor Peterson.
All right. Thank you, Council. I would like to address mainly the sales tax. I have 2 main points here. Number 1, with the combined sales tax that we already pay here in Arizona at any town, anywhere in the state, we pay some of the highest sales tax in the entire country. The other item is that the fact that we have a lower combined rate here in Gilbert is actually a good thing because it makes it more attractive for people who are shopping, making large purchases. So I think it's in our best interest to keep these rates as low as possible. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thanks, Brock. Next is Victor Peterson. Thanks, Victor. Victor, I'm sorry, we don't have any way to show anything that you would like to submit or show online. We don't have the old Elmo from what you remember when you were on council. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Back in my time, we were able to show some displays to illustrate items. Thank you for the time. Let me just start with one comment. Thank you for your service. I know a lot of people don't do that. Obviously, I'm here in opposition to the proposal, but I also know that a lot of work goes into what you do. Also, I'll just comment for personal circumstances beyond my control. I've not been able to be involved previously. The last time I was standing in front of the council fighting a tax increase, I had a mob of people with me. I don't have that tonight, although I wouldn't rule that out for the future. So I'm going to bring up an uncomfortable example to start. You'll notice in that benchmarks survey, which I saw 8 times because I sat on that dais for 8 years, we always bragged about our lowest cost of service. We can no longer do that. Chandler wins that award, and that's changed. Not only that, if you notice the benchmark survey, Chandler's kicking butt in lots of areas there. They have lower response times than we do. I've done some research. They have more parks than we do. And they also will still have 1.5% after tonight, and sounds like maybe we won't. And again, I know I'm too little too late, but I couldn't rest without at least making some comments. I'm disappointed with where we've ended up. And so I just want to point out, we have Americans already struggling with inflation, and the town's revenues over the last 4 years have increased 50%, far outpacing citizens' wages. I wish I could say that about my salary, 50% increase over the last 4 years. Now, some argue that population growth and inflation justify higher taxes. I can't show you my bread chart. I wish I could. But what it would show you is that we had a history that we followed population and inflation for a while. And when the council departed, they proposed a tax increase years ago in 2000, around 9, 10, and we defeated it. And all those council members were voted off the council. And in fact, that was why I got on the council, because I was part of that group. Here's the problem. I wish I could show you the chart, but what you'll see is that our trajectory is the bigger issue, guys. You're going to raise revenues, but your trajectory of expenditures does not map anywhere in a sustainable way. It doesn't. And you're going to continue. You're going to adjust one time. You're going to feel some breathing room, and it's going to be a few years, and we're going to be back here again because our trajectory will not map with the economics. It will fall apart. So I don't mean any insult, but it's an easy way out to do this tax increase. There's hard work that needs to be done, and it's to live within your means. You can do it now, or we can figure it out later, but we're going to be back here again. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. Nice to see you this evening. If you'd like to give your charts to the clerk's office, they'd be happy to share them with us. Thank you. Thanks, Victor.
Wait.
Yes, Councilmember Torgerson.
There was things that you and I spoke about, and I promised I'd get in deeper, and I'd like to make that available to you.
Well, I'm not allowed to approach the
You can, at the corner over there, I think you can come up and get it. There you go. Yeah, remember what. Thank you, Victor. Know you, though, so we've known you a long time. Thank you for your comments. I will go ahead and bring this discussion back to the council. We still have a public hearing open. Vice Mayor, did you have a comment?
I was just going to request that. I didn't hear a lot of comments about the bed tax. Could we do this in a reverse order and talk about the bed tax, then the use and sales tax?
I think it'd be great to separate them out into separate motions and discussions even. I'm going to ask the council, though, did you want to go into an executive session to talk legal items, or are you comfortable with where we are at? And I'm seeing no over this end. Yes? No?
I'm the only one that has the slightest question, so I'm going to say let's move forward.
Okay. I think that our town attorney, Chris Payne, I know John's sitting over there right now. Our town attorney, Chris Payne, sent us out an email about that, if you'd like to even refer to that, if possible. And then I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the dais. I didn't want to do that until we were ready to discuss. We can discuss each item individually. Would you like to start with the bed talks, Vice Mayor?
Well, the only comment I'd have about the bed tax is that we originally had a higher tax that was cut a number of years ago. And I'll tell you that we had a room full of opposition by the hoteliers who did not want to cut that tax. And I think that the fact that this is being paid by the visitors that come to the community, it's an important point to remember.
Councilmember Bongiovanni?
Thank you, Mayor. From what I understand, also a percentage of that tax has to be used for tourism, which creates more visitors, which creates more visitors spending money here, which creates more tax allotment that outside people pay rather than Gilbert residents.
Councilmember Torgerson?
Most of my comments were going to mirror that, but the fact that it is something that is used to create more revenue for this town, and that no resident, unless they've got a staycation for some reason on a Saturday somewhere, there's not one resident of this town that's going to come out of pocket on that. This is going to be the tourists that come here, and there is no one that picks a municipality based on the bed tax, and there's seriously only like one or two that would be below us anyhow. And the bed tax is far less than Los Angeles. Let me tell you, I was there a couple weeks ago. It was as much as the rent or the hotel stay. As a business proposition, it does nothing but make money for the residents of this town. You don't pay for it and you get a benefit. So I can't see a loss on that until you turn the number to something that would be repugnant to a visitor. And I simply don't think being at the lower end or at the same level as most of the larger municipalities would be deterrent for anyone to come to Gilbert.
I will point out that I'm going to agree with Vice Mayor Anderson first. There was a reduction in the bed tax several years ago, and the hoteliers did come in and oppose it because they said that it did go specifically towards tourism. And at that point, we had less hotels. We have more hotels today. We had less hotels at that point, and they wanted really any amount of money going into the coffers for tourism at the time to bring people to Gilbert, which was very important, but we did vote to lower it at that point. It was a 5-2 vote. And you're correct, except I have stayed at a hotel in Gilbert because I was remodeling my house. So that would be an opportunity where the Gilbert resident would, possibly need to stay, or you're moving and you have to be out of one house before you can get into another house. I did have the question that, could we have this so that Gilbert residents wouldn't be affected by that? And I don't know if anybody can answer that question. Kelly, do you know that question? That Gilbert residents could be, just they didn't have to pay the bed tax if they stayed at a Gilbert hotel. You'd have to prove occupancy, obviously.
I had a phone a friend of our tax manager right next to me, and she gave a very definitive no. It has to be equal across all people paying it.
I had a feeling that's what the answer was going to be, because we can't give gifts away and things like that too. So, and everything with taxes has to be fair. So, would someone like to try a motion for just the bed tax? I think we should split these out to make it clear and easy for everybody to understand. Or any other comments on the bed tax? Don't everybody jump at once.
I'll make the motion.
Mayor,
Yeah.
we have motion all in one
I
on
know.
your agenda packet, so I think we better stick to that and just finish discussion and then vote on them all at
We
once.
can't split them out separately. If we're still going to cover each item individually, John, are you going to tell me no?
Yeah, we've all got them, they're all written up into one ordinance.
Okay, and we had a
2918.
discussion on the bed tax. Would we like to move to the use tax next? Who would like to start that discussion? Councilmember Torgerson?
Again, looking at a use tax, I don't know how many people here shop online trying to avoid a tax when every municipality around us takes advantage of that. I think it's great if you can save a couple percent, fantastic, but overall, it's with the move away from brick and mortar and more that's being bought online, I think that we're doing harm to ourselves by encouraging that behavior. We're encouraging it, not, maybe nobody shops over 2%, maybe nobody cares, but it's certainly, if we continue to follow that path, and the less that we get from brick and mortar, and if we don't pay attention to creating more sales, creating more tourism, we are harming ourselves as a population. We're harming ourselves. So I am supportive of it as much as it pains me, and this is the most painful meeting I've been part of since I've been up here for me, because this is hard for me to say, but I think that it's necessary.
Chiavelli, I can't get my screen to go back to the one that I can see council members wanting to speak.
Mayor, I believe if you push that green button, it should.
I
go
did
back.
several
Okay. We'll get
times.
someone over there to take a look.
Thank you, sorry. I'll just watch everybody's microphones. If you want to speak, please just flag me, because I can't use my monitor right now. Any other comments on the use tax? Okay, then we'll move on to the sales tax discussion. Councilmember Kaprowski.
Thank you. You know, this is a difficult decision that is our job to make. We met in December of last year and in March at our spring financial retreat, and we considered multiple options of finding sources of revenue for these projects that were presented earlier. Gilbert residents expect an excellent and quality of life. We set a really high bar, but with growth comes challenges, and the projects shown, I don't think, are ones that we were willing to cut off the table, and that's why we're here on the dais making this decision today. I support the improvements presented because I do want to focus on better parks and trails for walking and biking in our community. That's why I got on council, and I will continue to back our police and fire departments on the resources that they need, and having space for them to work in our, like in the buildings, and space for our apparatus to be worked on. I mean, those are just basic necessities. So the proposed sales tax increase from the 1.5% to 2% will fund these key projects. And as we had talked about earlier in the year, we did consider other options, a combination of raising property taxes. We don't have a primary property tax, but that would be one option. But I think we all discussed that the sales tax increase would be more equitable because it spreads the cost across everyone who spends money in Gilbert, not just homeowners and local businesses. And it's a way that we can enhance our community without placing an extra burden on our residents' property taxes. Additionally, there's just equity in the fact that people that have more to spend or choose to spend more can then contribute more. So overall, I think that this proposed sales tax increase is going to really help create that safer, more connected Gilbert that we strive for. And although it's a very hard decision, it's been 25 years since our last sales tax increase. This is a more volatile revenue source, but I think it's the smart one at this point.
Councilmember Torgerson.
I also wanted to point out some of the things that people are unaware of. And I say this with all condescension and intended. The big brains at the state cut out rental tax. Most people in this room were opposing more apartments, yet the councils before us approved many thousands of apartments. Starting this year, we will no longer be able to get a rental tax. That takes about $9 million out of the budget next year, and in the course of 5 years, that would be $19 million a year out of the budget. They went for food tax, which as an individual, as somebody that's extremely conservative, I I don't like food tax. I don't like it because I feel it taxes, if nothing else, a basic necessity, and especially the poor disproportionately. I have been the guy that's been in line at the market and paid for somebody's milk because she had a kid in there and she couldn't afford $104 or whatever her thing came up to because of tax. And I paid for a gallon of milk. I threw $5 down and said, hey, I've got it today. I don't like it, but when and if they take that, that's probably $20 million a year out of the current budget, and was moved on last year and didn't move forward. The way that shared revenues have been done, I believe the hit was 24 million, is what they're saying the hit is per year, because the state, in their saving money, saved it by not sharing it with the municipalities the way that they've done this. There's a huge portion of shared revenue not coming to municipalities. So there's a choke on the money that is coming in that would go in to pay for some of these things. And I want everybody in this room to understand, again, I'm easily the most conservative person up here. When a bond was up, I was the sole guy pounding against it publicly. It almost didn't pass. And I don't like property tax. I despise property tax. But the only way to get away from that is we have to, A, hopefully our legislature is done trimming our budget for us, and B, to make it something where, at least in a conservative thought, it's a transactional thing. You're participating in something. You can choose to buy a steak dinner for $100 or not, and that steak dinner will cost you $100.50. I understand. But I would rather have that than pay more property tax every year and have senior citizens who are extremely fixed, and usually you could be a widow in a $1 million home, and it's going up, and it's going up, and you're getting a bond passed because it's not paid for out of sales tax, and you have no say, you have no recourse at that point. It's much more equitable, it's fair, it's sadly necessary at this point, and it pains me to support this, but I have to support it at this point because no one that has challenged me and just said, cut 20% from this, cut something. They've never come up with a project to cut. They've never come up with anything except fire this person, fire that person. Well, A, I can't do that individually, and B, what, $100,000 out of a $2.3 billion budget is not going to put us over the edge. We have to find specific things, and if we're willing to live with potholes and not enough parks, so be it. People need to speak up and say, I will put up with fewer parks. I know I had parks as a kid, but I don't want anybody else to have those parks. I don't want landscaping medians. It's a waste of money. And I don't care about potholes. And I don't care about the time that the fire department gets to me, because we need to build something new to keep it under 5 minutes. I don't care if I get that or not. I don't want to spend a dime. And if somebody's that narcissistic, I'm sorry, I can't support that. I'm more than willing to hear anything to try and shave money off this, to try and not spend this money, to try to be the best steward of the dollar that you spend or the dollar you're taxed in some form in this town. But I haven't found any large things at this point that I can take out of it. And this just pains me, and I have done more time than anyone trying to find a way around it, and I just can't find a way around it. I will not put my personal ideology ahead of the people of this town and what they expect, because they want everything for nothing, and there's only a couple levers to move, and this one, unfortunately, is going to have to move unless we want to move down the lever of what we expect as a town and the quality that we expect from our town. And this may change, but the biggest elephant in the room is what this town pays for is construction of roads, things like that. Construction is outpacing Bidenomics, which people anywhere want to say a CPI of 2.6% to 13% over the last 4 years. Cost of construction is up an average of 88%. Not 2, not 6, not 13, 88%. And that's what these taxes are going to go to pay. And this is just wrecking me to have to say this. I hate saying this. I despise saying this. But I can't really find a good way around this one. And I'm sorry, but with the mess that we have for the costs that are going up, we all have a choice not to repair a hole in our roof, but these 7 people up here don't have a choice in repairing the roof for all of us. If it's leaking, we need to fix it no matter the cost. We don't get to have a hole in the roof. How we fix it, who we use, we have some say in, and we need to really, really be the best stewards of the money that we're asking for. But on a whole, I just can't put my personal ideology ahead of the quality that I moved here for, that everyone in this room that's a resident moved here for. And I'm sorry, I've let friends down. I've had people say things to me that are irritated me, brought me to just an unbelievable fever because they say the most condescending things. But I have to put the residents ahead of my ideology on this. I'm sorry.
Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, they say don't follow animals, bears, or Councilman Torgerson, because it's tough to beat. I want everyone to think of a city that you would never want to live in. Don't say it out loud, please. And think of one reason why. Whether that be traffic, crime, schools, whatever your answer is, it comes down to quality of life. That's what it comes down to. I've heard people all this week talk to me about, yeah, we understand police and fire, but, you know, this rec thing is, you know, stupid. Why are we spending money on this? And it comes down to quality of life. And one person's definition of quality of life is different than someone else's definition of quality of life. I've had people say to me this week, it's not the government's responsibility to take care of quality of life. I beg to differ on that, because the Declaration of Independence says that every man, and I'm going to add woman and child because that's the kind of guy I am, has the right to pursue happiness. And what is the pursuit of happiness? It's quality of life. So as government, I think we have the responsibility to create the minimal amount of quality of life to put everyone in a position to have a pursuit of happiness. And for someone, that might be a dog park. For someone else, that may be a splash pad. For someone else, that may be schools. And if we get to the slippery slope where we start saying to people, well, I want to take this out and this out and this out because this isn't important to me, what happens when, 60,000 citizens in Gilbert say, I don't have the kids in schools anymore, so let's not pay school taxes anymore? Or let's get even more defined and say, hey, I only want to pay for public schools. I don't want to pay for charter schools because they're privately owned or whatever. That's why you have elected officials up here to take everything that we get in from people and make those really, really hard decisions. And this one really is horrible. I don't like raising taxes, but I do like increasing quality of life for people. When we look at our sales tax and we compare it with others, Chandler's at 1.5. They haven't changed since 1994. I'm willing to bet, I'm not making any claims, but I'm willing to bet Chandler's looking at us tonight saying what happens in Gilbert tonight. But we're going to remember that Chandler also has a primary and a secondary sales tax, property tax. Scottsdale, primary and secondary. Tempe, primary, secondary. Peoria, primary, secondary. Mesa has a secondary. It's pretty high. Queen Creek has a very high primary tax. Phoenix, primary, secondary. Glendale, primary, secondary. Goodyear, primary, secondary. Do you see what they all have in common? I think everyone up here does not like the even thought of having a primary property tax. And staff and leadership and us have come up with innovative ways so we don't have to have that in our vocabulary right now. And I am very happy that a lot of this tax won't be the burden of just Gilbert taxpayers. But reality is I look at it as we're 6 co-pilots up here, and we're flying a plane with 288,000 people on our plane. And we're not going to make every one of them happy. When there's turbulence, not everyone's happy. But I can guarantee you when that plane lands safely, everyone's satisfied. And there's a difference between being happy and being satisfied. I would rather have people satisfied than always happy, because it's impossible to keep everybody happy. And I'm willing to bet that that city that you have in your mind that you won't live in, I'm willing to bet that that plane did not land safely. And that's our goal up here tonight, is to be co-pilots and vote on something so we can believe this town will land safely and with quality of life. And that's why I'm in support of all 3 of these issues tonight.
Councilmember Buckley?
Well, I don't know how to follow these two, I'll tell you that. But I agree with both of them on everything that they have stated, and I really like your comparisons to the other cities. What no one else has talked about very much is how did we get to this spot? And I did a little bit of research, and for 8 years in a row, Gilbert did not raise any taxes at all. 8 years in a row. A city or a town, I feel, I don't know how they can go that many years and not raise taxes and not at some point have it come to a head, because you need to prepare for that, which we have done, and I know the prior council probably did the best they could, but I don't feel that they looked that far into the future. I've struggled with this ever since this came up, and you know, what do I do, and what have you know, what the residents expect. And what they expect and what they elected us for is to make sure and our duty is to balance the budget, make policy, and make sure our infrastructure in the town is strong. And we can't do that with the amount of money that we have. And just like Jim and Chuck both said, neither of these taxes, other than the sales tax, is probably going to affect us. But I just feel that yesterday, when I went to bed, it was like, okay, I have no idea what to do. I am just not going to, you know, I'd rather not vote for it. I'm sure everybody up here would rather not want to vote on this. I think that it's a necessary tax and that we have to do this. And for all the reasons that's been stated up here, you know, I'm in support of these. And I think it's the best thing for the town, and it's the best thing that we can do to keep the quality of life that we have and in the future.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Just a couple of real quick comments. During Patrick's presentation, everybody saw his slide that had to do with the City of the Future, and I would encourage anyone who's not familiar with that initiative in the town, please go find out from the staff, look on our website about the City of the Future initiative. The purpose of the City of the Future initiative is to prevent exactly what is happening. Unfortunately, what's happening is, and what's ironic about this is what's happening is town facilities are beginning to decay. And the rest of the town will follow suit if we don't keep up with the growth. And that's the whole purpose of the City of the Future initiative. And please go, there's not a day that goes by that I don't get an email from someone who has a complaint about those exact things that we talked about tonight, about the facilities that are woefully inadequate, about programs that people can't get into because they're too crowded. And we need to address those, and the best way to address those is, again, to pay attention to that roadmap to the future. And you're going to hear that from me a lot more in the future, talking about the City of the Future initiative, because it's extremely important to this town and to the quality of life that Councilmember Bongiovanni was talking about. And for that reason, I'll also be supporting these initiatives tonight.
Councilmember Tilkey.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we've had a lot of conversation this evening, and I think for the public to understand that we had a very, very long list of priorities that the staff brought to us, and we had to whittle that down to what you saw tonight. And that was a very hard process, and we had to do that first, and then we had to figure out how we were going to pay for this. I hope that nobody feels that this is like a flippant moment for anybody up here. It's a very hard decision, especially because we've had to make other hard decisions. And one thing that I'm proud of this council for is that we're not kicking that can down the road, waiting for somebody else to have to pick it up and figure out how to pay for these critical projects. You know, ever since I can remember, Parks and Recreation has been the last to be funded. And you can see by the participation that we had from all ages and all abilities looking at what their priorities are. And it speaks a lot to the maturity of Gilbert today. We're no longer this shiny new object, the fastest growing community, all of that, where we had all of this growth dollars coming in to help us pay for all of the things that we have providing for services and facilities. We really had to make a choice. Do we, as was mentioned, do we reduce response times? You know, what do we do with all of these important issues? And how can we fund it? One option was to raise the property tax and maybe a little sales tax. So why don't we balance that? Why don't we make sure we're lower in the sales tax department compared to other communities? But the fact that it's tied to your property taxes and your assessed valuation, we just felt like we had reached the ceiling for our community. And so we really didn't have any other options. Again, a lot of those projects, even the ones that you saw, aren't going to happen right away. We're going to have the money in place before they happen. But those are our top priorities. There's a whole list under that. So what I don't want anybody to think is that once we get done with those projects, we're done. We're done in Gilbert. There's going to be a continual impact on how we're going to be that city of the future. We're not going to deteriorate. We're not going to be a community that doesn't have quality of life, quality services. And unfortunately, that's not free. And we're going to continue to do our best to keep it at the lowest rates that we can. And we have to be courageous for all of our community. And so with that, I'll be supporting these changes.
Thank you. I ran against Victor Peterson the first time I ran for council, so it's ironic that he's sitting here in front of us and making comments tonight. My goal was to beat you, Victor. I came in third, you came in fourth. We served together for 4 years. And I ran because ideologically I didn't think that we agreed on things, and I thought I was more logical than ideological. And I see you smiling down there. I know you appreciate this. And this year has really impacted me a lot, and I've been so proud of this council, and I recently had this conversation with another council member that hindsight, looking back on the years that I served with you, Victor, and with Jared Taylor, and it was a 5-2 vote consistently, right? But you kept us even keel. You didn't let us go one way or the other because you were pushing back the way that you did. And coming out of this 10 years later, I admire that. I mean, that's where my hindsight comes in. I've told Jared the same thing. This year has been a tough year for Gilbert. We have raised water rates. We have residents that are suffering right now because of the raised water rates, and we've raised garbage rates, and we have residents that are suffering because of that. We have, to steal a term from Councilmember Torgerson, Bidenomics that are affecting all of us right now and the economy, and they just said that inflation is up again, and gas prices went up again this past couple of days because I got an email from Sam's Club that said that. I struggle with all of the increases that we've done in the town this year, and you know that I have voted against some. And coming into this evening, I was open to increasing the bed tax, and I was not sure about the use tax because I really struggle with affecting small businesses. We just opened the Catalyst. I'm afraid that we're going to target small businesses that are startups that are trying to get a place online, because we all know that online is where business lives today. And as far as the sales tax goes, I was struggling with whether to support it or not. I hear the needs from the staff, and I admire the staff and all of the work that they do, and I have supported just about every single thing that you have brought forward over the past 10 years. With work and with consistency, and The projects that I see on the list, I'm afraid that they aren't in the order that I would want to tackle them on. Chief Duggan presented at our retreat that we're running calls on our own staff at the fleet management, at the fleet center where they're working on our large apparatus. That shouldn't be happening in this town. That should be our number one priority, is fixing that fleet center. Let's make sure that we're not running calls on our staff. And I said that at the retreat. Other things that I just don't think are a priority for me. The crime lab, I know that we're talking with Chandler, and Councilmember Torgerson brought that up earlier. We're talking with Chandler, and if Chandler can do it, that's one thing, but if we have to do that on our own, I would be opposed to that. The remodels of some of the fire stations, I'm all for rebuilding Station 4. I've seen that happen with Station 7. We had to take down the old Station 7, build a new Station 7. It increased everything that was needed for that area. But there are just things that I don't see that we are telling the story and that the ducks are lining up this year for us, for me, to be voting to increase our sales tax at this time. And I know that staff's going to be surprised by that, but if you've been listening to me this year, it shouldn't shock you, because I voted against the pay raises. I asked to lower the travel costs. I've been working to try and keep us in that range that I now respect Jared and Victor for doing with us for years, and keeping this town at a level that I know it can be. I know the projects have been, I think, out of hand. And I've said this to Patrick when we've met, that how do we get to over $1 billion in projects all of a sudden? I had another former council member saying to me, in the whole time he was on council, he made like 5 really important decisions, and we make 2 really important decisions every 2 months on council. How is that happening all at one time? Where has the planning gone for the past 6 to 8 years? So you know where I stand. That's where I'm at. I would be happy to take a motion for A and then a separate motion for B so that we can vote on this.
I'll move to approve the adoption of ordinance number 2918 to amend the town tax code to increase the general sales tax rate from 1.5 to 2.0, the use tax rate from 0 to 2.0, and the bed tax rate from 2.8 to 5.0.
I have a motion by Councilmember Kaprowski.
Second.
Seconded by Vice Mayor Anderson. Please vote. Motion passes 6-1 with myself being the dissenting vote. Next motion.
Move to approve adoption of resolution number 4515, declaring the 2025 use tax amendments to the tax code of the town of Gilbert as a public document.
I have a motion by Councilmember Kaprowski.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Bongiovanni. Motion passes 7-0. That ends our public hearing portion of our agenda. Would anyone like to take a 5-minute break? Yes, I would. Thank you. We will take a 5-minute recess. Do like a 30-second warning to take your seats, please. We'll go ahead and call this meeting back to order. Moving into our consent calendar, Vice Mayor, passing to you.
Thank you, Mayor. We have several items we're pulling off. Look at those items. 17, item 23, item 26, item 30, and item 31. That's it.
Did you say 23 and 26? And 30. 30 and 31.
Yeah, 30 and 31, 23 and 26. With that, I'll move approval of item 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24, 25, 27, 28, 29, 32,
I'll second that.
and 33.
I'll second that.
Motion by Vice Mayor, seconded by Councilmember Bongiovanni. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Back to 17.
Item 17, Councilmember Torgerson.
I just really wanted to, part of this was to say something positive about it, but I would love for someone from the police department to come up, or fire department, and speak about what this actually is and why we have to vote on it to accept it as a donation.
Mayor and Council. Mike Aikstead from the Police Department. This particular item is a donation from a citizen. It involves two different items. It's vagus nerve stimulator and red light therapy, two devices that our employees, I can tell you, in the Police Department, in our dispatch center, they'll handle traumatic calls. They go on a break. They use these devices. It enables them to clear their mind, and we've had a lot of positive feedback from our employees on the items.
Mayor, Council, Rob Duggan, Fire Chief. Just want to follow up a little bit additional context. We had previous donation of this almost 12 months ago from the benefactor Rich Ganley from Positive Impact Alliance that donated this equipment and additional cold tub therapy and also saunas. And we conducted a 6-month pilot, pretty comprehensive, quantitative and qualitative, and I'm happy to report after that 6 months, there's been significant reports of improvements on both physical and emotional health as a result of the pilot. We were able to track usage, and employees that stuck with the program noticed quite a bit of decreased discomfort from inflammation, workout recovery, and even emotional general support and sleeping. So it's want to continue this, extending additionally to additional group of employees, particularly for the vagus nerve stimulator and also the red light panel for employees in the dispatch center to have better access to some of these modalities that we believe will have a tremendous impact to their physical and emotional health. And Council has provided a lot of support previously for the employees and members in this space, and look forward to continued support from Council to continue to bring forward modalities that make it healthier for our employees. So just bringing forward another opportunity to continue the trend.
And I also wanted to point out the generosity that Rich has done this, because this being on consent agenda, I didn't think it should just go by with not being noticed. The man has been very generous to this town, and what he's doing is going to be good for people. And I wanted there to be a recognition of that rather than have it just accepted and no notice, public notice to be made of it. He's done well for us, and he's a good man. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Chiefs. Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you for not letting this go by. Rich Ganley is amazingly generous with this community, and these options are really helping our firefighters and police officers. I've spoken to so many that feel better physically, are sleeping better. It really is making quite a difference. So anything that we can do to give our employees another opportunity is just fantastic. Would you like to make a motion, Councilmember Torgerson?
I move to accept item 17 as written.
I have a motion by Councilmember Torgerson, seconded by Councilmember Buckley. Please vote. There we go. Motion passes 7-0. Big thanks to Rich Ganley.
Item 23, Councilmember Torgerson.
I realize that there's a few levels of this, and I believe there's a gentleman from that was in charge of this for the CIP. I wanted to see the history of this since it was on an agenda 6 or 8 weeks ago, and it's back. Do we have somebody from there to speak on this and to help me guide through this as a heritage project thing, heritage district thing?
I found the right button this time. Mayor, Council, we have a short presentation tonight about this agenda item number 23. So just going back to the project scope, this was the original 2020 scope that was put into the CAP program. Just some of the redevelopment plan that was adopted in 2018. And the original description was to enhance and beautify the raised medians on Gilbert Road between Juniper Avenue and Elliott, which would include additional landscaping, foliage, and lighting and artwork. And then at that time, there were some plans and guidelines that were approved, the Heritage District Guidelines, Shade and Street Master Plan, Heritage District Place Marking and Wayfinding Guidelines, and in addition to the Circulation Study 2023. So this is looking at the big picture of all the different things that were going on in the Heritage District at that time and in between from current and 2020. Just some points of emphasis of the project coordination. There's a lot of different projects going on in the Heritage District right now, and here's some of the planning. We have the Heritage North median improvements. That's going to be development driven, that we've been coordinating with the developer there on the east side of Gilbert Road, just south of Juniper. PR 1328 and ST 2122 will be coordinated along with this project, but those are currently separate projects, but they will have the same design consultant as this project, the median project. In addition to that, we have the Union Pacific Railroad. There's some improvements that are required for us to do some improvements to the railroad. And in addition to that, ST 1320, Gilbert and Elliott intersection, which is slated for FY 28. So all these play kind of a role from where we were and to where we're at currently. Some of the immediate needs is I'm not sure if that's skipped, nope. Is Heritage North Development, again, talking to the developer. This was part of the original scope. Last time we brought this to council, we did some more coordination with the developer, and the developer will be doing their own half-street improvements adjacent to this lot in downtown Gilbert. And then also, again, the UPR crossing, that is still in this scope of this project moving forward. I think we were missing, I'm not sure what happened. All right, I'm gonna have to go off of memory here. Looks like we're missing some slides on this. So currently in the scope is we took some feedback from council, and we decided to do a design concept report, a DCR within this area. And what that DCR will give us is the opportunity to be able to take a step back and look at all these different plans and guidelines that are currently in the Heritage District, and to be able to come up with a better plan. Currently, how it works is we have a so I was on a roll there too, so. Okay, so unfortunately you're not gonna be able to see this, but so our current contract, or the contract before that we took to council was just over $400,000, and that included everything from Elliott Road to the Juniper Avenue. And so since then, actually let me go forward. So currently, the contract is 99,000, so it went from over 400,000 to 99,000. We're doing a DCR, as I was talking. Part of the DCR is to be able to, again, take that step back and be able to holistically look at everything that's going on in the Heritage District, what the function of this project truly is. Because when we start a design phase without the pre-design phase, we have to try to include everything that's anticipated for this area. But this pre-design phase, the DCR will let us have that opportunity to be able to look at everything. If there's anything needed from all these different guidelines and circulation plans and different things, make sure we're not missing anything as part of this DCR. In addition to that, the railroad is coming in and we have to expedite some plan review for that and get some construction documents. So that'll take the medians on both the north and south side of the Union Pacific Railroad and take that to 100% plan so we can actually install the medians before the railroad gets there. Because if we wait for the railroad to come in, they're going to have their own plan with the cantilevers and all these different lights, things that we don't necessarily want in the Heritage District. So this will be part of this 99,000 will be able to expedite that piece of the railroad. We did remove the piece from Elliott Road to the railroad track, and that's going to be a future project for Gilbert Road because typically we're doing, not to get into the design of that, but that's going to affect about 1,000 feet in each direction of the Gilbert and Elliott intersection. So whatever we do now in that area will basically be removed in the future. So we want to have any throwaways. So we remove that piece off of this as well. So what you see here tonight, the 99,000, that is encompassing the entire project, again, taking a step back and getting a better approach to what is truly needed out here. Once we understand that, then we'll come back to council, which maybe I have this one on my next one, is the next steps. So tonight is the approval of design concept report. And then the future steps is we'll come back to council and we'll go from 15% design concept report to 100% plan. So that'll be a change order to the original plans, or I'm sorry, the original contract, come back to council and take this from the concept of 15% to 100% design plans. So again, just taking a better approach at this, taking a step back and making sure we're crossing all of our I's or crossing I's and dotting, yes, sorry.
We know what you meant.
Yes. And with that, I think that any questions?
You know, is it, and just because of being the liaison to the Heritage District and having a history with it, would you say that economic development was one of the champions of this particular?
Yes,
design?
absolutely, 100%, yes.
Would you mind if I asked Dan Henderson a few questions?
No, Dan may, but I don't.
That was a great line. Thank you. Thank you for the levity. Dan may, but I don't. I don't think Dan will mind either.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
I want, you know, from your perspective and what we've talked about over the last several years, at one point, let's say 8 weeks ago, I think we looked at this and it was well over $3 million. And now it's down at 100,000. Can you explain our discussion, you know, your memory of our discussion and how we got here today?
Certainly, Mayor, Council, Councilmember Torgerson. I think Ryan captured sort of that project history really, really well. Just kind of backing up, you know, when we look at sort of foundational elements related to downtown development, things like clean, green, and safe are foundational for a vibrant downtown. And these foundations draw additional investment, tourism, as we've talked about, and in an area that has over 5 million visits a year, this beautification project, as Ryan talked about, for the medians, gives us that opportunity to bring art, enhanced landscape, and other elements into the median. And I think Ryan did a great job of talking about where we were previously with this particular item and where we are today.
Basically, we've taken several steps back to the initial point. The scope kind of creeped out of control and was back down to $100,000 is what it sounds like, right?
Well, if I might, Mayor and Councilmember Torgerson, as it relates to scope creep, I can't really talk specific about that, but certainly the needs in the Heritage District have evolved. And I think Ryan, when he talked about the developer contributions in this particular area, certainly that is an element that, that we're excited that as growth build, sort of pays for itself, the opportunity for the developer to step in and pay for their half road, improvement, so to speak. I wouldn't necessarily call it scope creep per se, but I would just say, as we really looked at the programmatic elements to this particular request of council, I think we've evolved sort of that perspective, come to understand some things as Ryan talked about, and this is where we're at today. And delighted that this contract is before you at around $99,000.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kaprowski?
My understanding is that the $3 million was the line item for the construction costs. And by doing a design concept report at this stage, this is pre-design work that will then be able to narrow down what is actually going to be designed. Because typically when you're just designing a typical road, there's a typical cross-section, but this is pretty unique in terms of there's probably a lot more options that have to be thought through and gone over. And so will the design concept report also include a revised cost estimate for some of the elements that are then identified through that process?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, yeah, absolutely. So that's the beauty, I guess, of a design concept report, is because then you can actually get that actual cost of what those improvements could be. That $3 million that we're talking about, that could go up, that could go down. It just depends on what comes out of that design concept report. So that's what we're looking for within lighting, the median, the landscaping, whatever that looks like. We're going to understand that more fully so we can have a better estimate.
Will public involvement or presentations to the redevelopment commission be part of the process, the design concept report?
Mayor, Council, I believe there are some different meetings set up that will be part of that. I can get back with you on who those groups are with, but I believe there was some involving that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? So Ryan, explain to me why we add medians to Gilbert Road. And I'm going to tell you why. It irks me when we do the Gilbert Days Parade that we have medians down Gilbert Road. And I've probably said it every single time I've participated in a parade, which is every year except 2020. Why do we add medians to Gilbert Road? Part of the Heritage District plan. I know for Heritage North, it's because the driveways are not going to line up between Heritage North and the businesses across the street. Can you speak to any of that?
I can take a stab at it. So our standard on a minor arterial is medians along there, and that's for a pure safety standpoint of keeping the direction or the travel direction safe from traffic going one way and the other. In addition to, especially the Heritage District, you don't want a lot of crazy U-turns or different things that could happen in there on a very tight stretch of a roadway. So really it's a safety issue and a standard from the town of Gilbert.
Okay. Again, it irks me every time we do the Gilbert Days Parade. Try and have a band come down one side of Gilbert Road with, just saying. Would anybody like, any other questions for Ryan at this time? Would anyone like to take a shot at a motion?
I'll move to approve item 23.
I'll make a second.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Kaprowski, seconded by Councilmember Torgerson. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for being a good sport and answering the questions and the levity. Appreciate that. Next, Vice Mayor.
Item 26, Councilmember Torgerson.
I actually don't need a presentation. I got my answers not long ago.
Do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept item 26 as written.
We have a motion by Councilmember Torgerson, seconded by Councilmember Buckley. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Next.
Item 30, Councilmember Torgerson.
I'm going to do it again. I just want to hear someone take responsibility here and say that these things are 30 and 31, that there are no clawback strings attached and adheres to all the policies we have in place regarding taking grants.
Mayor, council members, Melanie Dykstra. I'm the Volunteer and Community Resources Manager. So the grant that you're looking at is an opportunity for us to receive funding from our tribal nations. Each of these, through the state compact, they allow or actually require that money is given back to communities from their revenues, and they have the opportunity to do that individually through a 12% process. Many provide applications that you apply for, and we did that on behalf of our Native American Management Internship Program as well as our Victim Advocacy Internship Program. And so we are receiving funding directly for support of those opportunities for students. And then we are also taking in funds from the tribe to support 3 outside organizations, because other nonprofits do have to be sponsored by a municipality in order to accept the funds. So we actually then really just literally are a pass-through for those funds. So they will, if the council approves the item tonight, then I will send it back to the tribe, and then they will actually cut a check, give it to Gilbert. We get invoiced by the 3 outside entities. We deliver the check to them, and then that is the extent of our obligation. In our internal, for accepting the funds on behalf of our programs, we are required to submit a mid-year and an annual report to the tribe, just talking about our accomplishments and how the funds were used in support of the programs and that we met our objectives. And that is the entirety of the program.
I appreciate you taking your evening just to say it.
You bet.
And good job.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to accept that if nobody wants to speak.
I'll second
You
that.
want to do 30 and 31?
Yeah, 31 I want to hear all separately.
He wants to hear separately. It's a different project.
Okay.
So we have a motion on 30 by Councilmember Torgerson, seconded by Councilmember Tilke. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Next.
31.
Mayor, Council, Mike Angstead again from the Police Department. Just commenting on item number 31 here. This is the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant. There is no clawback on this particular grant. It's actually named after a police officer that was murdered in 1966 in New York. They started up this grant, and we've been receiving these grant funds for years. Basically, what happens is they're derived from Washington, D.C., but they arrive in the state of Arizona based on a formula. It has to do with population and the amount of crime that occurs in any given state. Those funds sit with the state. If we want to accept them based on our population and crime rate, we may, or we may defer them, in which case they would go to neighboring jurisdictions and they would get a bigger piece of the pie. But our only requirement in terms of reporting is to let the federal government know how many crimes occur annually, which is something that we've done historically the entire time I've been with the town. It's something that's industry standard among all police departments.
All right. Thank you. You understand my trepidation when I see Department of Justice and things we've seen out of it. So I appreciate you taking your time to explain what our role in it is. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to make a motion?
I make a motion to accept 31 as written.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Torgerson, seconded by Vice Mayor Anderson. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0.
That completes the consent calendar, Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to administrative items. One item on our administrative calendar, discussion and update from the Community Engagement Task Force. Councilmember Tilke.
Thank you, Mayor. Our task force met last night and received presentations from Parks and Rec on opportunities for teens. So I'd just like to mention a few of those for the public so that they know that we have some programs available today. We have a service learning program, which we have 44 participants in. Child and babysitting safety training, 115 participants. Sports and recreation, arts, crafts, and creativity. Our recreation centers at Freestone and McQueen both have teen spaces in their lobbies with pool tables, foosball, table tennis, TVs. And you don't have to be a member to be able to go in and take advantage of that. I believe they tried in the past to have a private room for teens, and that didn't work out. But when they moved it out in the lobby, we seem to have a lot more participants coming in. We have a junior lifeguard program, 183 participants, swim lessons, aquasize classes, special events like H2O Fest and Nerf Wars. Those two are pretty popular with the teens. And then we have different event volunteer opportunities for those 14 and older. In the past, we tried to do some e-sports, e-gaming, but we were dealing with an outside vendor, so the cost was a little more than I think some could afford. So we're looking at how we can make that more accessible in the future. We also had an open gym at nights or days at Freestone Park. Felt that maybe it was a little too structured, so they're looking at ways to make that a little more welcoming. I think even Robert mentioned earlier that when we did all of the outreach in the community for Parks and Recs, youth was a big part of that. And one thing that we noticed is if you put food, they will come. So it's something we might want to consider in the future. A few things that we're exploring is how do we meet teens where they are? And so exploring cross-city e-gaming tournaments, drop-in teen nights like sports games, video game tournaments, teen trips, and pizza was added on that list too. So those are some of the things that we talked about. We also explored what other communities are doing, and a lot of them, I believe, have started new programs, so we really don't have a lot of data to see how successful they are yet. And then as we were looking at all of these, we acknowledged that there are a lot of faith communities that have teen programs that we probably need to learn a little bit more about, as well as school-based programs. We do have on our website, gilbertaz.gov, teen resource programs on there, so we've added that page. We also heard from the police youth engagement programs. So they were received a lot of the data that we've received recently on some of the challenges and data points. The youth engagement programs have a new tagline: listen, build, and empower. And so they learned, similar to what we heard last time about the Heritage District parking, security, online reporting systems, and curfew enforcements. The youth engagement also talked about some ongoing programs, and I'm really just mentioning this so the public will understand. We have all of these, so I'm almost done. Aspire Academy, Gilbert Youth Leadership Academy, Gilbert PD Cadet Program, monthly community engagement events, sensory awareness, family events, and of course we have our student government and the Mira's Youth Advisory Council. And then they received an overview of partnerships with all of the outside agencies that we currently work with. So I think that that's going to conclude all of the research that we were needing, and our next meeting is November 4th, where we're going to focus on initiating these recommendations that we're going to be bringing back to council in December. So that's our update.
Thank you for all that information. I think that my daughter's 30, and she's used to say the same thing. There's nothing for teens to do in Gilbert, right? I said, you mentioned a lot of different things that I think people just don't know exist out there, but a lot more can be done, too, into the future. And you're right. Feed them, and they will come, right? Councilmember Torgerson, did you have something to add, or is just your mic on? Okay, just checking. Just want to make sure. Then moving on to communications from citizens. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. We value the participation of our community members and the robust exchange of ideas. However, it's essential that this discourse remains respectful and constructive, reflecting the professionalism expected in such forums. While we understand and appreciate the passion our community members bring to these sessions, we must remind everyone that clapping during the meeting is not acceptable. Also, playing of music or showing videos may subject the town to copyright infringement and is not allowed. As your name is called, please come up to the podium, state your name and your place of residence, your city of residence, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak at the podium. First up tonight is Susan Borea. Susan will be followed by Dan Reynolds.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. My name is Susan Boria. I'm a resident of Adora Trails in very South Gilbert. I'm relatively new to the community. I left my home state of New Jersey in 2017 and moved into my brandy new home in Adora Trails in 2018. So I don't have all of the history or the knowledge of what's transpired in the town previously, nor do I know how to garden here, and my beloved tomatoes, I can't seem to grow them. But I've been to enough meetings to know that very often the council members receive criticism from this podium. And quite frankly, some of it has appalled me. An example being that at one meeting, someone said that there was blood on your hands. It just makes my heart sink when I hear things like that. In reference to that particular issue, I feel that if we had less soft parenting and less kids will be kids, more consequences, and personal responsibilities, some of those issues we wouldn't be dealing with. But I wanted to be sure that you heard from this podium that there are residents in the town of Gilbert who very much appreciate all the time, the effort, the real consideration of issues on our behalf. And that's basically it. I just wanted to say thank you, and I wanted to say thank you before the end of the year when the council changes. That's it.
Thank you, Susan. Dan Reynolds. Dan will be followed by Bridget Vega.
Mayor, Council, Dan Reynolds, citizen for a long time, 30-some years. I'm hoping you guys missed me. I've been gone for a little bit, but I want to talk about a couple things. I want to tell you a little story about your current fire chief, and after I'm done with the story, I'm going to tell you the reason why I'm telling this story. But before that, I don't know how aware you guys are. It's come to light just recently with me, but our electric fire truck has been having some problems, and I don't know if you guys know that. I happen to be pretty aware of it, being a former employee of the fire, and Station 2 is my first due, so it's super important to me. But that truck is out of service way too much. The reason I bring this up is under the understanding that we're going to be ordering some more. I have nothing against electric fire trucks, but I think there should be some more studies done or some time to make sure that these are the trucks that we should be having here. And that could be 10 or 15 years, just like cars. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware of that. And if you want to look into to see how long that thing, or how many, what percentage that is out of service, I think it's worth you guys to look into it. Okay, I'll tell you a little story about Chief Rob Duggan. 30 years ago, he had a friend that was on my crew. Rob worked in Casa Grande as a firefighter and wanted to work in Gilbert. So the guy on my crew said, hey, I got a guy that wants to come ride with us because he wants to be a firefighter here. I said, sure. So we had a ride-along program. We invited him. He probably rode with us, I don't even know how many times, but a lot. And we took him on calls, and we went to training, and we did lots of stuff, and he stayed there for hours and hours and hours, sometimes all day. At some point, I started having some people come up and say, hey, who's this guy that's been with you a lot, riding and whatnot? So I told him who he was, told him where he worked. And one of the feedbacks I had was, this guy's kind of arrogant and not really a big fan of him. And I said, told me some more information. I said, okay. So next time Rob came, I invited Rob into my office and said, you need to start shaking people's hands. You need to put a smile on your face, and you need to introduce yourself, because people have a bad kind of a, they don't like your appearance. They think that you rub them the wrong way. So he took that information and he did something about it. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story, real quick, is because, and he'll tell you this story. If you think there's anything about this that doesn't sound right, please ask him. But the reason I bring this up is because I'm still getting a little bit of feedback that you've got disgruntled employees here that are saying stuff because they're disgruntled. I am far from disgruntled. When he'll tell you that story, and I've heard him repeat this story, he says I'm the guy responsible for him getting a job here. So let that sink in. I appreciate your time. Let your conscience be your guide. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Bridget? Bridget will be followed by Jenny Jones.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chief and Banger, you don't get to continually to look the other way on this issue. As we work with Assistant Chief and the Youth Engagement Officer to try to bridge the gap by being proactive to prevent this from happening again. Your leadership, specifically Chief Solberg and Chuck, continue to perpetuate this behavior by invalidating the victims, community, and the reality of teen violence. Chief, you appointed Jim to be the bridge to rebuild the trust by, much like throwing your patrol under the bus. Now you're dismantling the trust Jim is trying so hard to build with the community. While you guys are focused on categorizing breaking down the data, children are still getting assaulted. Assailants are walking the streets free, unbothered. Classifying violence for data, reporting, and putting it into categories is resourceful if you're learning from mistakes, implementing policy change, training material, and prevention awareness to ensure the community is safe. The continual gaslighting and the dismissive comments have to stop. Chuck, deflecting by saying that the arson wasn't teen-on-teen violence is exactly how and why the goons flourished. Changing categories doesn't make it different. It just pulls wool over the citizens' eyes. Again, Chuck, the teen boys lit a barn on fire, burned it down, and thank God the teens got out of that barn alive. It has been nearly over a year, and it's time to take a clear stand against violence. Otherwise, this will continue to spiral. It's time for transparency. We demand that Gilbert PD releases the unredacted reports for Tristan Keener and Connor Jarnigan, including the body cam footage, to the boys' lawyers. It has, again, nearly been a year since Preston was murdered. What is the plans, Gilbert, for Halloween parties, enforcement on unruly gatherings, and curfew this weekend? According to Arizona Central, 95 assailants have been counted through video. 18 have been arrested in random attacks, and only 14 have been charged. 12 pleaded guilty, 7 in Preston's case, all pleaded not guilty. What are the police and town's plans on holding the other assailants accountable, including those in active gangs, as many fail to recognize that Gilbert has a gang issue? We have a duty to protect the innocent and rise up for the children.
Thank you. Jenny Jones. Jenny will be followed by Carissa Arnold.
Jenny Jones. I just wanted to start off by saying that I don't believe that Gilbert is safe. If you would have asked me a year ago, even 6 months ago, I would have said, yeah, absolutely. I believe all the hype that Gilbert's one of the safest communities in the country. Unfortunately, we were targeted by the teen violence, and my whole perspective on that has changed. I no longer feel safe in Gilbert, to the point where our family has contemplated moving out of state because of the what's been done, what's led these children, teens on the trajectory that they have been on. I feel like Gilbert has put on a facade, and too many people in the community have believe that facade, and nobody's willing to look at the deeper issues and make real changes to protect our community, to be the safest. We need to be holding these kids accountable, and we haven't for so long that one of the Gilbert goons went on an interview and told it, in the interview, he discussed how they mock the Gilbert police, that they would see Gilbert police at the In-N-Out and turn their heads and not do anything. Those kids, they laughed at them. They knew that they could get away with it. I believe that's the same case with the boys involved in our arson and attack. Our daughter was threatened, and they fulfilled that threat by attacking our home, and he's probably going to get probation only because it's his first offense, and it's only his first offense because of mistakes made in the police department. And so, and I've also had to file complaints against other officers who have made mistakes. Like, we shouldn't be having this many mistakes if we're touting that we're the safest community. It's also made me feel like it's hard to trust, you know, people in power over the community. I don't know any of you guys, but it did really feel like an attack when those comments were made saying that our attack was not considered teen-on-teen violence when the boys are being charged with 4 counts of endangerment with the imminent risk of death. Imminent risk of death. That means very possible death, right? That's violent to me. So it did feel very personal. I didn't feel like that was appropriate to be said. Also, that another article came out saying that we're having record number of teen charged with aggravated assault and misconduct with weapons in the Maricopa County. So there definitely is a problem going on right now, and a psychologist who's been specializing in this said behavior doesn't just happen. There's a pathway, a trajectory that leads towards behavior. And when the wool is being pulled over, or when things are not happening and the children, the teens are mocking the police and not being held accountability, that we're seeing the trajectory that happens because of that. So I'm just asking for some change in accountability, transparency.
Thank you. Carissa?
Thank you.
Carissa will be followed by Steve Laval.
Thank you for your time this evening. As we've continued to come to you month after month and ask you to take teen violence seriously, it continues to be downplayed. Statements from Mr. Bongiovanni on Facebook made it very clear when he said, "What happened, happened." Chief made it clear when he tried to downplay the teen violence crimes in his most recent media interview. This despite the recent barn fire and despite a teen being lured out of his home and swarmed and beaten just 3 to 4 weeks ago. He said there had been no swarming with teen-on-teen violence. Please tell me how that happens, how this statement is accurate. Just last month, the Arizona State Supreme Court gathered officials to have the discussion about teens committing violent crimes. 2024 set a record in teens charged with aggravated assaults. Kids are angry. Mental health institutions are constantly at maximum capacity, and suicide remains the leading cause of death for kids here in Arizona. Rachel Mitchell's office cited a 350% increase in first-degree murder and 108% increase in aggravated assaults among teenagers. We have kids hurting. Hurt people end up hurting people. This is an epidemic that must be taken seriously, or we will watch more kids die. This town is fully aware that there are multiple gangs operating in its presence. This town is aware that the number of guns circulating among our youth is aware of the number of guns circulating among our youth. Just look at the videos at the recent car attacks. The kids were holding guns ready to shoot a homeowner as they came out of their home. Just a little over a decade ago, this town was not ashamed to admit that there was a concern over gangs. In fact, Gilbert Schools invited your detectives to evaluate the challenges they faced regarding gangs and drugs in the school system. The information gathered showed approximately 4 to 6 gangs operating in this town. The difference between then and now is that there was a clear, open admission to gangs being a problem. Teen drug use and violence was a recognized issue. Today, this town wants to shove it under the rug as though it doesn't exist. We live in the state with the highest import of fentanyl in the country. In the country. With fentanyl and drug use comes violence. Kids are driving out from the West Valley to the East Valley to come party because of the easy access to drugs and alcohol, and we have heard this directly from officers. To think that this town would be exempt from crime occurring in the same crime that's occurring in neighboring cities is foolish. In fact, if you had figured out a way to eradicate the crime, not only would other cities be coming to you for help, but you would be shouting it all over the media. The point is, be real. Admit that there is a problem and work to figure out a way to resolve it. And as this young woman said over here, we do need accountability for our kids, because without accountability happening, the problem will only grow and get worse.
Thank you. Steve Laval. Steve will be followed by Jason Tamura.
Good evening, Council. What can I say? I sent you an email. Only one of you actually responded to me. None of you answered any of my questions, but thank you, Councilmember Bongiovanni, for answering, or for at least responding. Let's see. You've raised my water rates, and now you've raised my taxes, but you can't answer my emails. So it's funny, your fire chief, he wants to do all this stuff with your building of your buildings and all that stuff, and the $98 million, and you're raising me taxes, and I'm telling you, he's building 4 of those stations. He's just changing bathrooms in them because he has a transgender that's using female restrooms, and you guys refuse to do anything about it. But you cannot deny it anymore. It's out there. It's in the public. He goes down to the Gay Pride Parade in Phoenix. I wrote you guys about that. Thank you for not letting him bring a fire truck, but he still drove his pickup truck. Pickup truck's a town asset. He used that town asset to go all the way down to Phoenix, and I'm paying for that. And I know that won't cover the taxes you just raised on me, but why am I paying for that as a taxpayer? Why is that asset going all the way to Phoenix for a gay pride parade? And why is this government trying to push sexuality on the citizens? You have no business doing that. That's not government's role. But you didn't want to tell the government. You didn't want to tell the citizens, excuse me. You didn't post it with your award-winning Office of Digital Government. You didn't let the people know you were going down there. So let me read you, when your Office of Digital Government did post something about the Pride Parade, let me read the responses, your engagement numbers that Patrick likes to brag about. Children don't belong at Pride events. Isn't this the same department that got upset about a thin blue line flag was being flown? How much was spent participating in this event? Why is that young child holding a backpack supporting testing for HIV and AIDS? Why are we broadcasting this? They deleted that photo because they obviously knew it was wrong. That's a response to the other one. So they delete the photo. They know they're doing wrong. They put a photo up and then they remove it. They're not fooling the citizens. If you want to celebrate the people like you take home into your beds, leave children out of it. And with that, do it on your own dime. This is the tax dollars and hardworking Americans. Let's go on. As an AZ gay, why the hell are my public tax dollars paying for this shit? Pride has no place in a society now. We achieved full equality under the law and this then some in 2015. I'll be waiting to see you participate in the Christian or Mormon parade. No, why not? Let's see. Oh, this is really a good one. Comment section shows you are doing the wrong thing. That's your comments. The majority of comments, 90% of those comments on that post are negative. Now, you talked about courage, the courage you guys had to raise my taxes, but you don't have the courage to stop the wokeness that Patrick Banjer has done. And I'll leave you with this. The reason why you have so many projects and you're raising my taxes is because he and his leadership team are nothing but a bunch of yes people. So when he wants something, they say yes. There's no challenges to your plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. My name is Jason Tamura. I live at 35240 East Oakland Street in Lionsgate. I'm here before you on behalf of my community The construction firm Tilson is overbuilding our neighborhood and is doing a very poor job of managing it. I come from the background of doing this work as well, and seeing what's happened is really bad. The company that they've hired from out of state, Lone Star, has hit gas lines that were marked. They have blown out garbage in our yards. And in addition to that, there's questions to them leaving potholes open overnight. And frankly, our neighborhood looks really bad. And you know how large Lionsgate is. So we have tons of pictures I'll send you all. Not very satisfied. It took, so their response time is supposed to be 48 hours from Tilson. It took me 5 days to get a response from them. And in addition to that, when I talked to the gentleman, he stated that he is trying to work with the contractor and make sure things got taken care of. Well, that's not good enough, right? I know and Patrick knows this too, Gigapower has a license here in the city to operate and to follow by the city or town's guidance according to that, and I don't believe they're doing the right things. So I'm just asking that gets rectified, because it's not. And we've taken a big hit in our community. So I just wanted to share that with you all, and I expect Tilson to do better in our city. Because here's the deal. We talk about the money we're spending. That's costing us a lot of money, right? I mean, Patrick, I know your guys' teams are trying to manage that. We shouldn't be having to manage people who want to come and bring us service and not do a good job. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to suggest, Patrick, that you have staff, but it sounds like you're already doing that, contacting them. Thank you. Just a reminder to the council, something that the clerk's office included at the conclusion of communications from citizens. The council may respond to criticism, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be put on a future agenda.
And Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Thank you, Mayor. Jennifer, I want to apologize if you took my comment as offensive. I don't know if I was the only council member, but I called you today after the fire to make sure that you and your family was okay. The last thing I've ever wanted to do is upset you.
Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we really, and I know Chris Payne's looking our way, you have to keep your comments general.
Okay.
Not specific to a person. Okay? Thank you. Chris, is that right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Forget about that, but don't forget about what I said. My comment was basically talking about classification. I don't make the classification rules. I don't know if it's the FBI or the police or the statistics that do that. My comment was, arson is arson. It wasn't teen fighting teen. And when you take a look at data, if you put the data in wrong, it can have effects to how you create programs around there. We could call everything teen violence, and we won't be able to dive down into the data. This town lives on data. So my comment to anyone out here was not in effect to you personally in your situation. I care deeply about your situation, and I hope you could tell that from my phone call. But we just have to document things correctly so we can take a look at how we can take that data and make decisions from it. I don't make the categorizations. I was just clarifying the categorization that was mentioned. That's it. Thanks.
Any other comments at this time? Councilmember Torgerson.
One thing I would love if staff could follow up and give me a service record of the electric fire truck. I would like that. There has been an inquiry as to the cost of the Pride Parade, which seems to be about $865. And I wanted to say thank you to anybody that said good things about us from behind the dais for once.
Any other comments at this time? Seeing none, We will move on to our agenda items, future meetings, 2 items on future meetings, council retreat item related to status update. I'm assuming this topic will be on the retreat in November. Thank you. I tried to pull up your email to double check that and I just couldn't find it. Thanks, Patrick. And then meet and confer follow-up discussion for 2025. Moving on to communications report from the town manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Give them a second to pull up the slides. Okay, if we could advance to the next slide. I want to start with congratulations to Tyler and Carmelita. The Household Hazardous Materials Olympics event took place in Austin, Texas. It's an obstacle course and relay race that tested both skill and safety awareness. Participants had to unscrew bolts from a 55-gallon drum, push the drum on a dolly, get dressed in full PPE, and roll a 55-gallon drum, all while ensuring safety. Points were deducted or teams had to restart if tasks were done improperly or if safety measures weren't observed. And the results were Tyler Unsel team won first place and Carmelita Nichols team came in second place. So congratulations to them. They do great work for us and it's great to see them recognized. Next slide. October is National Code Compliance Month. National Code Compliance Month shines a light on the significance of adhering to local laws and safety standards, ensuring communities are safe, clean, and thriving. Local governments celebrate this month to recognize the efforts of code enforcement officers and to raise awareness about the role these regulations play in maintaining public health and safety. It's a nod to the silent guardians who keep neighborhoods orderly and livable, and we certainly appreciate our code enforcement team that works very hard in this area for our community. And with that, that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Patrick. Moving on to report from the council. Councilmember Bonji.
All right, so the FRC Boo Bash. Come show off your costumes at Freestone Recreational's Boo Bash. Engage in arts and crafts, games, inflatables, and a petting zoo. Pre-registration is required and limited to the first 300 registrants. This event will take place Friday, October 25th from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Sign up today. The Snowvember Pop-Up Party. Bundle up for so much fun at the McQueen Park Activity Center on Sunday, November 9th at 10 a.m. You can get cozy building an edible snowman and sipping hot cocoa while we make a few snow-inspired crafts. Get ready to watch it snow with an indoor snowball fight. And to round off the fun, step outside for our grand finale, Foam Snowstorm. It's Snow Wonder. You won't want to miss out on this cool time. Sign up online today. I didn't write that, by the way.
We knew that. Councilmember Kaprowski.
In just over 2 weeks, on Friday, November 8th, the town will be having their Veterans Day ceremony at the Gilbert Regional Park. I believe that's in the morning.
Actually, it's here at Town Hall.
Oh, it's
Sorry.
here at Town
Yes.
Hall? Okay, great. So here at Town Hall, the Veterans Day ceremony in the morning, Friday, November 8th. That evening is the next Gilbert Symphony concert, and its theme is Veterans Day theme as well. It'll be opening with the Star-Spangled Banner and also have a salute to veterans. So there are a couple of events there for Veterans Day.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Tilkey?
Thank you, Mayor. I think I have a couple slides. So I just wanted to make sure the public knows that we have the general election on November 5th, and there's some information there, and if you go to the next slide. I think it's really important that everybody understands that we do have a drop box here at the municipal, here we are, Town Hall, we're going to call it. And so if you have your mail-in ballot, you can drop it off. And then we have an actual voting center over at the North Area Service Center on Juniper. You can also scan the QR code to get other locations, including polling locations. Is that correct? Yep. Good. All right. And just a reminder that there are 3 items on your long ballot that impact Gilbert. Proposition 497, permanent base adjustment, Proposition 498, capital projects accumulation fund, and then candidates for 1 council member seat. So we ask you to get out and vote, and there's more information online. Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Okay, then it'll move to report from mayor. So I have also a couple of slides. We have Gilbert's Domestic Violence Awareness Night that will be held this coming Thursday, October 24th at 5 p.m. right here at Gilbert Town Hall, right outside on the lawn. And following that, I have my report that I've been offering, which shows what I've been doing. This one's 4 weeks long because we haven't met since 9/24. So this covers 4 weeks of where I've been and what I've been doing, the meetings that I've been attending. And again, it doesn't include any of the meetings that I do internally with staff or a couple meetings that I've held outside or any of the reading or packet studies that I have to do for the meetings that I attend. Do I have another slide, or is that it? That's it, right? Moving on to some reports from things that are going on. Councilmember Kaprowski covered our Veterans Advisory Board having their Veterans Annual Event on Friday, November 8th here at Town Hall at 11 a.m. And I want to say congratulations to Robert Carmona. I don't know if Robert is still here. Oh, you are. I wanted to say it earlier, but I didn't think it was appropriate timing. Gilbert's Parks and Recs Director has been inducted as a fellow into the American Academy for Park and Recreation Administration, one of the highest honors in the field. So congratulations, Robert, for that. Over the past 6 years, Robert has been instrumental in shaping Gilbert's parks and recreation landscape, overseeing the development of Gilbert Regional, Desert Sky, and Cactus Yards. And our transition at Cactus Yards was very notable for us as a council. So congratulations on that, Robert. Wanted to share and to follow up a little on Councilmember Tilke with the election. It's very important that everybody please turn your ballots in. If you haven't mailed them back, last day to mail back is the 29th officially, but if you would rather come and drop the ballots off to a ballot box right here in our lobby. And at Juniper, there's also a ballot box besides being able to vote in person. This year, I dropped mine in the ballot box here at Town Hall. Just in case you don't trust the mail, getting it where it needs to be, this box gets emptied every day at 10 a.m. and will be open and available through 7 p.m. on Election Day to drop your ballots that day. And Assistant Chief Mike Angstead shared with us last night, Maricopa County is over 9,000 square miles, and there are 12 early polling locations, and one of them is here in Gilbert. So I just wanted to share that for the East Valley and for us in Gilbert, where we have that location available for you to get out and vote before November 5th. And if not, get in line on November 5th and make sure you vote. It's one of the most important things that you can do. If you need help with your ballot, please reach out. I'm happy to answer questions. And it's a very long ballot. Start at the end and work your way back to the beginning. I think everybody wants to vote for president, but nobody wants to get all the way to the end. So I'm asking you to go backwards on your ballot, 2 pages long. And that's all I have for the evening. So I will take a motion to adjourn. So moved. We have a motion by Councilmember Bongiovanni. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. We have birthday treats for Vice Mayor Anderson. I gave him his card and